All right. Okay, Matthew, now that we have our Magician's Niece shulker box, we're just going to hold on to it. And we're not going to look at the guidebook because we're not that poor.
Throw it to me.
It is Matthew.
Oh, the shulker box. Throw me the shulker box.
All right, look, we have Magician's Niece 1 of 9. And look at this. Look, Matthew, look. The compass is having a dance party. That means that it's not in this dimension. Okay, so we're going to go to warp, say end portal. We're going to make sure we have Elytron so that we don't have a stroke and die, potentially. And we're going to jump through. And now the compass is working. Wait, who? This is 2 of 9. Okay, we're going to follow it. Okay, look. Look, guys, the compass is going around. Oh, wait. Oh, 1 of 9's right here. Okay. Magician's Niece, 1 of 9. And since you already know where 2 of 9 is, since the compass is pointing to the same location, like it's still... Oh, it's not an adventure map, but we're doing a lore adventure right now. But we see these compass 2 is right here, so we're just going to grab it. And we're going to read through these books. You guys better be ready for this. I like how Belia, are you enjoying this? Or Matthew? People still in voice chat.
Yes.
The way had been shut. No one and nothing could pass. Avarice had seen to that. Or at least that was who Rowan suspected had done it. Truthfully, she didn't know. The seals blocking the end were nothing like his work. She trained under him long enough to recognize his craftsmanship. And this wasn't it. The war zone that lay waiting on the other side, however, that was Avarius' handiwork, if ever she'd seen it. The remains of old Spawn City Plaza had been cracked, shattered, like slivers of frozen earth hanging in a vortex of destruction. Ice and corruption clung to everything in sight. The few buildings left standing now coated in a fine layer of powdered snow. I think, how many buildings are left? I already mined out a full building. The Winter Lord had been here and had run into resistance. Someone had fought back. And there was no telling who had won and who had lost. Only that nothing had been left standing once the fight was over. She picked through the ruins with care, climbing over mounds of ice and crumbled stone on her way to the center of the maelstrom. Focal points gotta be around here, she mumbled, kicking at the snow and clenching her teeth to stop them from chattering. The circle's gotta be big enough to cover the whole island, shit. The ground shifted suddenly under her feet, tilting wildly to one side and pitching her backwards. A sharp crack split the frozen air, followed by a rumble of falling rock and snow. A fissure split the ground and yawned open, threatening to swallow her whole. She yelped and dug the heels of her boots into the ground, scratching at the ice, with gloved hands as she began to slide into the depths of the island, her voice lost in the growing thunder of rock and snow. And that's about this island right here. This giant island here at spawn. Look at this thing. This island looks like a massive mess now. I mean, it already got destroyed once, and then now it has a bunch of ice spikes everywhere, and it's been mined up for resources by some people. Like, I don't know who would decide to mine up the entire spawn tree for some reason. Probably someone not very smart.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alright, here's book 2. Book 2. I haven't actually read through these, so quite entertaining. She knew she was dead from the moment the ground had split apart. She was sure of it. She was too slow, too close to the bottom side of the island. A fall meant an endless tumble into blackness, and she'd felt it in her gut before she'd hit the ground. Which is why when her head popped out of the freshly fallen snow, her first reaction was to cackle madly at her luck, and her second was to check and make sure she still had all of her arms and legs. She'd lived. She was buried under 10 meters of rubble and frozen half to death, but those were solvable problems. She'd lived. That was what mattered. Satisfied that her extremities were all present, she pulled herself out of the snow and took a good look around. The chamber she'd ended up in was a solid bubble of air, its walls barely more than a few meters apart. Dim flickers of blue and purple light glowed from the inside from inside the ice, granting her just enough illumination to see by. But otherwise, the space was empty. She climbed to her feet and began studying the crack that had split the wall of the chamber. The black sky was drifting snow of the surface. And drifting snow of the surface were still visible through it, which meant she wasn't deep at all. She sighed despite herself. She lived and she wasn't in anywhere near as much danger as she'd initially thought. With mortal fear no longer a factor, she'd ended up simply feeling annoyed. Pulling her tools from her backpack, she began chipping away at the ice, grumbling irritably as she dug and cursing the universe's rotten luck. Karma had seen fit to scare the wits out of her, but had promptly ruined it by robbing her of any real adventure to go with it. Now she was just at the bottom of a normal hole with a normal pick, digging a normal tunnel to go back to her normal life. Was it petty? Maybe. But being a wizard's apprentice was supposed to be dangerous work. Dangerous and exciting, damn it. Her foot slipped on the ice and sent her sprawling into the snow again, like the universe was trying to remind her that she was being silly. To be fair, she had it coming. She sighed again and sunk her arms up to her elbows in the soft snow, picking herself up so she could go back to digging herself out. That was when she felt it, a sharp stab of rock buried under the snow that cut through her gloves and dug into her palm. She jerked her hand back reflexively, yanking free a chunk of glowing white and purple crystal that tumbled out of the snow and onto the floor of the chamber. "Whoa," she mumbled, rubbing her palm absently and staring at the crystal. "Hello there. Oh wait, hello there. What are you?" That's the end of book 2. Honestly, having like powdered snow would be so good for this, like, a lore season right here. Having like powdered snow traps. That'd be crazy. Ooh. Just imagine, Matthew.
I got another brick.
Alright. Magician's Niece book 3 of 9 seems to be going crazy. So we're gonna go to spawn. And we're gonna follow it. Which is pointing in a northward direction. Oh, Beck's right here. How's it going, Beck? Yeah. I like his new skin. The blue fits well, honestly. We're gonna take a shortcut past the museum here.
I know where you're going.
Yeah, I know exactly where I'm going to. Magician's Niece book 3 of 9, which is over here by the GDS base.
I have
book
2.
4 of 9 is right behind us as well. So, see, yeah, but points right here.
I have
3 of
2
9 and
plus,
4 of 9.
what's the other one? That's the Better Than Avarius's brick that has lore on it.
I'm gonna walk inside the GDS house to read this. Oop.
GDS has a house? We should blow it up.
GDS headquarters. Beck and Roan were down. I wonder what they were talking about when they were down here earlier after the events. Well, too bad. Time to read the new book here. These books just get longer and longer. Oh my gosh. She could hear the whispers from the crystal shard in her hand like thousands of voices echoing through its facets, clawing their way out from somewhere deep inside. All is lost, it mourned, and we are lost in the absence that remains. She stuffed the crystal in her pocket with a firm shove, quieting the whispers with a determined grunt. What did it mean? Where had it come from? She'd have given anything to ask Avarius, but he'd all but disappeared, likely buried up to his helmet in books back at his lab. She'd been wandering the streets of Spawn City all evening, hoping for a glimpse of Rodney or Bumpy, anyone she could hand the unsettling little crystal off to. It had been getting louder, and she was sure it wasn't good. She heard footsteps echoing in a nearby alley, leather rasping on stone, accompanied by a long shadow that crept up the street in the flickering streetlights. It was growing darker outside, and the city's nighttime gloom had begun to settle in. "Evening, Rowan," the shadow murmured. She recognized Beck's voice immediately, but something in it seemed wrong. "Evening, Beck," she replied calmly, trying to keep her nerves from affecting her voice. "You wouldn't happen to have seen Rodney or Bumpy, would you?" she asked. Beck stepped around the corner into full view, tugging absently on the cuff of one of his gloves. "I'd expect not. It should be a few hours before any of them arrive tonight." He paused, and she could hear a smile creep into his voice. "Any particular reason why you'd need them?" She took a step back, her hand dropping to the hilt of her blade. "Beck," she said with a note of warning, "you're freaking me out, man." "Can't imagine why," Beck answered. "You have nothing to worry about so long as you're willing to be rational about things." He took another step closer. The Coke bottle green lenses in his plague hood flickering a subtle blue. "Let's not waste each other's time. Rowan, you know what I'm here for." She almost reached for the crystal shard in her pocket, but forced herself to keep her hand on her blade. "You changed sides," she breathed. "You're with the Winterlord now, aren't you?" "Evan after haven't really made a good case to fight him," Beck countered. "The way I see it, I'm just going with the winning bet." "That's not how GDS does things," Rowan replied angrily. "End this or you're out." "Shame," Beck replied. "GDS would have been a real help." "Oh well." She heard another set of footsteps behind her and another shadow darkened the alleyway. "I'll be direct, Rowan," Beck announced, brushing aside his coat and pulling a string of vials from his belt. "You have something I want, and you get to decide how much it costs me." He plucked one of the vials from the string and held it between his fingers. "Or how much it costs you." That's book 3 of 9. Hi, Matthew. Heard you walk in at some point. Alright, book 4 of 9 here. "Swords aren't quiet, nor is shattering glass for that matter. The sounds of both can carry pretty far, and aren't usually the kind of thing you'd hear in a civilized part of town. If you could call the back alley where GDS kept their base of operations civilized..." If you could call the back alley of where GDS kept their base operations civilized. Tizien heard the fight before he saw it, the sounds echoing off the shop fronts along North Avenue. Clouds of strangely colored smoke and flashes of light billowed out from between the buildings, and despite not being armored for it, he couldn't help but jump at the chance to try a few new toys. He broke into a run, sprinting through Scott's temple and out into the far street, pausing at the temple's edge while his combat gear came fully online. The kit he'd brought was far from his unusual set, but it would do in a pinch. Far from his usual set. I said unusual. His armor systems buzzed to life. Full body panels extending from under his street clothes as he stepped out into the road. There were 2 targets, one in the back, a potion in one hand and a crossbow in the other, and a second target with a sword and a shield between them stood Rowan. She was hurt, and clearly on the defensive, but not out yet. "Give it back, Beck," she yelled, lunging towards the further figure, but the closer one made a swipe at her back when she moved. She whirled to block the attack, but the blade bit into her shoulder and drove her to the ground. That was Tizien's opening. Leaping out into the street, he rushed the closest attacker, slicing the edge of his sword across the target's back and sending them stumbling forward. Off balance and unprepared, the target tripped forward into a vicious upward swing from Rowan. The impact sent them staggering back, but the quick shout from Beck brought them back to their senses. "Home out," Beck bellowed. "We've got what we came for." The figure nodded and disappeared, vanishing into thin air before Tizien managed to get a look at their face. He whirled towards Beck, but the alchemist vanished just as quickly, leaving the street empty except for Rowan and Tizien. Tizien groaned, triggering his combat kit's shutdown and staring at the spot where Beck had stood. too sluggish. Gonna need some better mobility. We've got bigger problems than that, Rowan gasped, trying to climb to her feet. She'd been hit hard, and it was struggling to stand. Beck's throwing in with the Winter Lord. He stole something from me. I need to get it back. He's long gone by now, and you're in no shape to chase him, Tizian replied, with a shake of his head. Tell me what he took. We'll make a plan while I patch you up. There we go. Book 3 and 4. And now we have book 5.
Happy Burger 72 wants me to go to them.
Are you going to teleport to Happy Burger 72?
No.
Okay, this compass is also having a seizures or dance party, or I don't know. So we're going to warp to... Actually, I'm going to go to my portal. Why'd I have to go to the other portal when I can just go to my portal?
They're in...
Wait.
Like...
I want to see the ground. I'm kind of scared. Oh, there's the ground. We're right above the right place. Okay. That was actually spooky.
You know how many times I teleported out of the end? Because I couldn't tell where I was looking. And
the lag and the F3 like square box was making me so confused as to where I was looking for a second. And I was looking like straight down.
I was looking up and I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then suddenly I turn back and like I'm looking slightly up.
That was actually
so I look
spooky.
Slightly down, and then I'm going straight into the void. Like,
I'd have my macro if I needed it. Magician's
I literally
5
used
of 9.
I literally used a totem. I almost lost all of my stuff to the void.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm pretty sure that was lag, because...
Yes. Time to read book 5.
That one.
And then he just bailed with it, Tizian finished. Didn't see who the other guy he had with him was. Avarice replied, his voice crackling over Tizian's headset. Well, we'll have to get it back somehow. A crystal shard that whispers to people ain't merchandise I'd want Beck to have. Tizian nodded. Same. That's why I'm out here in the end looking for more of the things. What's your search pattern, Avarice asked. Tizian rolled his eyes. Well, I was going to just fly north, but now I'm thinking of using pattern Sigma Delta, do Avarice's dirty work because he's effing lazy. Oh, I like that one, Avarice cackled. Saves me money. Oh, hang on, Tizian announced, baking towards an island on the horizon. I see a patch of ground on thermal that looks colder than ambient. Chords, Avarice snapped. Tizian checked his HUD or HED and began circling for a landing. A little over 2 kilometers due north. Looks like an impact crater or something. He flew low over the edge of the clustered ice, flaring his elytra for a landing and coming to a stop at the rim of the crater. The force of impact had cracked the edge of an island, and thin tendrils of frozen corruption had begun growing out of the depths of the crack. He started to climb down carefully, picking handholds and testing them to see if they could hold him before moving on. He'd made it halfway before the whispers started. We deserve this, the wind whispered, driving flecks of snow down the edges of the crater and onto his eyes. Our banishment was just, and we serve our sentence in shame. There's one here, he announced. I can hear it. Whispers, just like Rowan said there'd be. Got it, Avarice said. Logging your location and plotting possible impact points. Find that shard and get the hell out of there. Tizian nodded silently and stared at the drifting snow, scanning for any sign of heat or light. He almost missed it at first. I saw a purple-blue glow just beneath the surface of the ice. Got it, Tizian stated. I'm extracting it now. He pulled a small lantern from his backpack and set it down, then began chipping away at the surface of the ice, carefully avoiding contact with the crystal itself. I'll leave this sample packed in ice and put it in a containment cell. Works for me, Avarice agreed. Your next destination is 4 kilometers south, followed by a circular sweep. What about the shard Beck took? Tizian asked. Let me worry about that, Avarice replied angrily. Just keep working on the other fragments. Book 5. And there are people out in the hallway again making duck sounds, per usual. Bro, they were actually so loud today, Matthew, earlier. They were making duck sounds for like 15 minutes in the hallway. And they were being like really aggressive with the duck sounds. I was like, what? Alright, this compass is also going crazy. Book 6 of 9, so I'm gonna go ahead and go to spawn. And this one's pointing north again. Which I think we actually missed this one as well, over by one of your reading books 3 and 4. It was actually in the building. Boop, boop. Right over here. Yeah, Spawn looks pretty nice. It's a newer Spawn, but like Spawn City's also been developed a lot, so it looks a lot nicer than it used to in the past. There's a tavern. Don't go to the tavern. Book 6 of 9. Rowan sat on the temple steps and stared across the road at the GDS building, her head resting against her knees. Reza told her to meet him here, but she couldn't bring herself to go inside. Not yet, anyway. She'd been waiting for nearly half an hour, lost in thought while she waited. Why had Beck changed sides? What had he meant when he said he hadn't been given a reason not to? None of it made sense to her, but then again, she supposed if it did, she probably would have sided with Beck already. Avarice appeared around the corner, breaking her train of thought. I don't have long, he stated cryptically, stalking past her and up to the GDS front gate. Without so much as a second glance. Open it, he demanded. She lifted the latch on the gate, then stepped aside to let him pass. He stayed eerily quiet as they stepped into the building, offering no sign of his thinking beyond a silent stare from behind his visor. You will go first, and I will follow you, he announced. You will push the buttons I tell you to push, and open the doors I tell you to open. Clear? Uncle, what? She began, but Avarice held up a hand. Questions after, he stated, then gestured towards a button on the nearby wall. Press it and let's get moving. Of course, the button he'd indicated opened a secret hatch. She shouldn't have been surprised that he knew, but the fact that he made her press it instead of doing it himself worried her. Either way, she had no choice. She pressed a button, then stepped through the hatch with the various following behind her. They made their way down into the depths of the building as the tension growing as they passed through layers of security. Avarice was after something, but for the life of her, Rowan couldn't guess what it might be. It wasn't until they reached the GDS vault that Avarice's plan became clear. As they stepped through the final door, a telltale whisper of cold wind brushed past Rowan's ear. That which was ours has been taken away. 1,000 voices screamed. And the truth crashed into the pit of Rowan's stomach. It had been a ruse. Beck had hidden the fragment here, and her own base, right under her nose. And Avarice had fallen for it. Pick it up, Rowan, he said calmly, but she could hear the fury in his voice. Pick it up and hand it to me. Uncle, this isn't, she pleaded. You're with me or you're not, Rowan. Avarice thundered. Pick it up. Her head spun and a sudden chill crept up her spine. Uncle, I didn't know. You have to believe. The room turned cold, and a sound like laughter cut through the air. Time's up, Avarice snapped, reaching past Rowan for the fragment. Well, book 6 of 9. We still have 3 more to go. And where the button is, the button's right there, I think. I'm pretty sure that's the button, right? Oh, there we go. And here's the secret door. Where's this book leading? This book's also in the overworld. And I think it's down here because it's moving quite a lot. Here's a secret layer down here. GDS base. I don't really like these double chairs. They're kind of awkward. Oh yeah, and I know about that, Matthew. Beck actually showed me, I think. Or Rodney and I looked through this place actually once. Matthew, these double chairs are actually spooky. I don't know, it just feels awkward not having a shoulder rest between the people. Like if I sat right beside you. It feels too close. This feels too close. Okay, that's enough. Okay, we have book 7 of 9 here. There's a lot of netherite too.
Yeah, I also like how they removed a sword and just named one Iron Sword.
Rowan James Retro. I think that's Bex.
Yes, and then this used to be Lava Boys, but...
Oh, he's gone.
Yeah.
I don't know where he went. Alright, book 7.
But you don't?
No, I forgot what happened. What?
Oh. You got banned for...
Got banned?
Like, you got banned for hacking.
Oh, okay. Makes sense.
And X-raying.
Book 7 of 9. A blast of frigid wind tore through the room and slammed Rowan and Avarius's back against the walls. In an instant, Beck was between them, his eyes now blazing with blue fire. He turned towards Rowan and winked. "Thanks for the tip," he said with a smirk. Then reached back and snatched the fragment off the wall. Avarius shoved off from the wall and lunged for Beck, pivoting in mid-air and flicking a bolt of lightning at him. The bolt connected, but a sheet of purple-black ice rippled across Beck's coat, and the lightning glanced off. "You can't beat him, wizard," the alchemist whispered in a voice like an avalanche. "He is everything you've ever undone." The wind roared, and the wall behind Beck exploded, sucking him into a maelstrom of ice and blackness. Like a shadow caught in lamplight, he flickered across the room and up out of sight. Avarius lunged after him, bursting into a spray of arcane fury and disappearing into a cloud of runes, passing through the ceiling of the GDS bunker like a ghost. Every instinct told Rowan to stay where she was. Avarius had taught her barely a fraction of what he knew, and Beck had held out against him at full force. What could she do? She was out of her league. Yet the desire to do something wouldn't go away. She couldn't sit by. Avarius had power on his side, but he was chasing Beck, fighting on Beck's terms. He didn't know Beck like she did, and that gave her an advantage Avarius lacked. All she needed to do was catch Beck by surprise while he was distracted. "Tizian," she yelled, pressing the comm button on the side of her helmet. "Yeah, what's up? Everything alright?" Tizian replied. "I don't know who to trust right now, but I need your help," Rowan explained. "Avarius is chasing Beck, and I need to know the moment Beck gets away from him." Tizian mumbled. "Okay." "Thanks," Rowan said, then cut the comm line. She pushed through the rubble and into the main room, rifling through the GDS archives as fast as she could. A list of bases had been on file, including Beck's private labs. If he managed to escape Avarius, that would be his first stop. He'd be exhausted and underprepared, and that would be her best chance. She rifled through the list, mentally checking off bases Avarius would know about. The GDS network could get her to any of them. All she would need is to get there first. She pocketed the list and swiped a potion from an equipment box near the door. She had a plan. All she needed to do was stick to it. And Matthew's not here anymore. Oh no. Matthew, I thought you were going to be behind me or something.
No, I ran. I need to find...
Next place is Avarius' secret location. So I'm going to guess that is close to... Actually, I know where it is, but... If I had to guess and I didn't know, I would have gone to Cthulhuville, because this is practically Beck's domain. It is his land, actually. I believe this is the layer of the Beckoner, the Void.
Oh.
That's where he had the GDS banners, actually, yesterday that I got, Matthew. He had them down there.
Ironically, I ironically came over here. I wasn't even going to the next sign.
Oh. Yeah, this is where I got the GDS banners. You had 2 down there.
Ow.
The Magician's Niece, 8 out of 9. Alrighty. We lost him. 8.5 kilometers southeast of spawn, Tizian said quietly. But we tired him out as much as we could first. Good hunting. Rowan nodded and downed the potion. Thanks, Tizian. I owe you one. Damn right you do. Rowan snorted and cut the comm line, then glanced at the list of destinations on the GDS network for the closest one. She'd have a narrow window of opportunity and she needed to move fast. She pressed a button for the base in question, an old mining complex hidden deep under a mountain. The world shifted around her, resolving into rough stone walls lit by torchlight and flanked by ancient statues. She listened carefully for a moment, tiptoeing through the rough-hewn stone galleries and straining to hear any signs of life beyond her own. The halls were quiet, save for the howling wind audible from the shaft to the surface. Beck hadn't arrived yet, but he was close. She took up a position behind a statue in sight of the hall's only entrance, carefully keeping her sword sheathed and out of sight. She didn't have to wait long for Beck to appear, and when he finally did, she could feel her resolve beginning to weaken. She stepped out from the shadows, flanking around behind Beck, watching as he fought to catch his breath and daring herself to inch closer. He turned suddenly, his green eyes flashing with blue as he whirled to face her. The sudden move made Rowan jump, and she instinctively drew her blade. So, Beck gasped. Pulling aside his mask and smiling at Rowan, "Come to change your coat?" he gloated. I want the fragment back, Beck," Rowan demanded weakly, wincing at the fear in her voice. "So you can do what? Have resorted? Wait. Oh wait, he retorted. Oh my, I can't read anymore. So you can do what?" he retorted. "Beg Avaris to take you back?" He began to laugh, but a fit of coughing interrupted him. "I told him you were with me. He'll never trust you again." "I don't think that's any of your concern," Rowan shot back. "That's for him and I to sort out once all this is over. But until then, you'll be all alone," Beck countered, "and we both know you can't survive on your own." Rowan held the point of her sword against Beck's chest for emphasis. "Guess I'm about to find that out for myself, aren't I?" Beck laughed again. "Assuming Avarius or I don't prove it for you." Rowan ignored him. "You have something I want, Beck," she said firmly. It may have cost me everything, but I promise." She dug the point of her blade into him. "I will make it cost you more." Ooh. This book 8 of 9. Ew. Okay, we're going to Phoenix Spleef. I thought there was a warp for your location here in Phoenix, other than Spleef. Well, I was wrong then.
I only have the Spleef and the clan home.
Oh, I thought there was more than that. Well, apparently I found out that there was a town named Phoenix Vale. I had no idea.
Yeah, I found that out too when I made the warp.
I still didn't know. I still didn't know. Alright.
Time to find the book.
Yes, a very awkwardly placed book. I mean, not so awkwardly placed, just lots of people don't know why it's placed here. Which I don't know why it's placed here, but I mean, we'll find out.
Someone was mining here. Who was mining here?
The Magician's Niece, Book 9. "It took a big risk on you," Tizian said carefully, eyeing Rowan from a distance. "Avarius wants your head almost as badly as he wants Beck's. If he finds out, he's going to," Rowan snapped, "because you're going to tell him." "I'm going to tell him I helped you?" Tizian repeated. "Why would I ever do that?" "Because it's the only way to explain how you got this," Rowan answered, and dumped the void fragment onto the ground between them. The whispers had grown louder now, the voices screaming on the wind like nails on a chalkboard. "You have been banished from what is left," they howled, "all for the greater good." Oh god, Tizian murmured, his face going pale. You got it back? I never meant for this to happen, Rowan continued, though she could hear her throat tightening as she spoke. Beck ruined everything, but she took a deep, steadying breath, but a very slight one. Your uncle's just trying, Tizian started, but Rowan shook her head angrily. I know my uncle better than that. He thinks he's saving the world, but his anger goes to his head. Give him time, Tizian said softly. Let him figure it out on his own. If he doesn't, then... He shrugged. Well, I guess he's not worth your time if he thinks you're not worth his. Still hurts, Rowan answered, pulling her helmet back onto her head and turning to leave. Even so, I hope you guys pull this off. Beck's pretty far gone, but this isn't him. If anyone can pull him back from the edge, we'll get it done, Tizian agreed with a nod. And that's the whole set. The Magician's Niece, book 9 of 9. We have the whole set and special book, and then we can open the guidebook now, Matthew. You can open it. Look, the guidebook gives all the specific coordinates to the exact locations for every single one of these and the closest warp or best warp to go to. How are you doing up there, Matthew?